I'm super excited for 2024.
To come back as a four-time champion means the absolute world to me.
2 decades of experience, maybe I can put that to good use this year.
We're here for that overall driver's title.
I think it's going to be tough. I don't underestimate anything whatsoever.
Winning the Jack Sears has filled me with a lot of confidence.
Any driver will be lying to you if they tell you they're not nervous going into a season.
I'm looking forward to the new challenge. When we get to round 1, I think we'll be ready.
It makes it very unpredictable, and that's what we like.
It's going to be phenomenal.
It has been a long wait, but we're back. A new season as the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship is set to get underway. Welcome to Donington Park's National Circuit. Welcome to a new season. And as ever, some fantastic racing in prospect. Driver shuffles, new drivers to the championship, and of course we've also got some tweaks to the regulations. We'll come to those in due course. First on the agenda though, let's just remind ourselves who drives what in 2024. Fewer cars, familiar faces and returning race winners are just a few of the headlines for BTCC 2024. It's as you were at Napa Racing UK. The team that grabbed a triple crown of titles last year will again be led by reigning champion Ash Sutton. He signed a new 3-year contract, and his quest to become a 5-time BTCC title winner will be ably assisted again by Dan Camish, Dan Rowbottom and Sam Osborne.
Ash Sutton's 2024 spec is hungrier than ever. That 5th title is just around the corner, and I want to be the first to achieve it.
It's the same story at Team Bristol Street Motors as 2022 winner Tom Ingram leads a 4-car lineup that includes the experienced Tom Chilton, who will make his 500th series start later in the year, and young Scott Ronan Pearson, who showed flashes of potential last season. Nick Halstead will hope more hybrid boost will help move his Hyundai i30 up the field.
I'm super excited for 2024. I think it's an important year for me.
After 6 wins, 12 podiums and a 3rd place finish in last year's standings, Jake Hill returns with Laser Tools racing with MB Motorsport in the West Surrey Racing prepared BMW 3 Series.
I'm very excited because it definitely brings a new era for the car and for hopefully us as a team.
Team BMW had a disappointing 2023 by its incredibly high standards, and with Stephen Jelly's departure, the team begins the season with just 2 cars on the grid. Colin Turkington is back to contest his 20th BTCC season alongside Adam Morgan in a car powered by a new UK-supplied BMW engine.
I think it's a great moment to be involved in BTCC. You know, it's my 20th season and you know, it could be one of the best.
The biggest off-season transfer news is at Toyota Gazoo Racing UK, which has replaced Rory Butcher and Ricky Collard with World Touring Car champion Rob Huff and last year's Jack Sears Trophy winner Andrew Watson.
I am confident in this team and this package that we can deliver race wins.
I think we've got a really strong driver lineup, and I think as a team we can pull off some sensational things this year.
With One Motorsport taking a step back from the BTCC, Speedworks will also run a 2-car satellite team in 2024. Josh Cook and Aidan Moffat team up again and will drive Corollas under the LKQ Euro car parts with Cinetic banner.
I've never been more prepared than I am for this season. I feel like I've got a bit of a point to prove now.
Aaron Taylor-Smith and Mikey Doval return to the PowerMax Racing Vauxhall Astra for a 2nd consecutive year, having impressed throughout the 2023 season. And there's a new team on the grid this year as BTCC race winner Chris Smiley returns to the championship with Restart Racing. They will run 2 Cooper Leons and rookie Scott Sumton takes the other seat.
We obviously want to be at the front. We want to try and win a few races, try and cement ourselves in the Independence Championship, which I think we have a very good chance of potentially winning this year.
Completing the class of 2024 is Daryl De Leon, the youngest ever driver to compete in the BTCC. He'll drive a Cooper Leon for Duckham's Racing with Bartercard. With 9 teams and 20 drivers, it's a lean and mean looking grid, but with so much talent on show, this should be a season to remember. I know we say this every year, but it is going to be a fantastic season. And we say this every year, Tim Harvey. This first qualifying session is always a highlight. We've tweaked qualifying a bit, and we'll explain that in due course. But I know that on a personal level, you love this session, don't you, the start of the season?
I absolutely love it. Look, 95% of a racing driver's life is spent talking. The other 5% is the enjoyable bit, the driving. And that starts now with the first qualifying session. And it's the only qualifying session where everybody has the same amount of hybrid use. After this weekend, it obviously will depend on championship position. So I love this session. A, because the cars are competitive for the first time. And B, because it's bragging rights of who's fastest with equal machinery.
Now, the other key thing about qualifying is the number 6, not our 6-packs, respectively, but being in the top 6, being in the quick 6, because this is how qualifying is now going to work. After free practice 2, the field is divided into 2 groups, odds and even-numbered positions then, and it is the fastest 6 from those 2 groups that progress to Q2, so you end up then with 12 cars, and it's the fastest 6 again that go into Q3. So Q1 is about not being slow, effectively. Q2 is about being quick to make sure you're in that final 6-car group for Q3. And of course, it's that will determine the front of the grid. And for those of you that get knocked out of qualifying, then you take your grid position accordingly. So Q1 is going to be 2 groups. 10 minutes each, and at the end of the first 10 minutes the pit lane opens to release the second wave of cars, the second group. There's no gap, but there will be a 5-minute gap after Q1 to Q2, after Q2 to Q3, and that 5-minute gap starts when the last car enters its pit bay, and then the work starts. So if you're first in, you've got a lot more time to sort out any tweaks, any modifications, any repairs even, compared to the car, the team that is last into its pit bay. It is going to be a fascinating session, and of course with only 10 minutes to each of these parts, you can't muck up, whether that's making a mistake and going off the road or exceeding track limits, because there isn't the time to fight back.
No, and it pretty much means everybody will get one run at it. Remember, the front wheel drive cars, particularly on a cold day like today and on a relatively short circuit, they have to do at least 1 or 2 warm-up laps before coming into the pits to cross the tyres over, that way getting warm tyres from the front on the back, which is the axle that heats up slowest, to balance the tyre temperature. So they're really only going to get one good run at it. The BMWs, the only rear-wheel drive cars, will get a more consistent run, but it's cold today, and I'm not sure the BMWs will get their tyres really up to temperature, but it's a great car this year, the BMW.
So, pole position for the first race of the year, place your bets. And one man who is hoping that he's going to be the fastest is the man that was on pole position here last season. That is Dan Rowbottom. And earlier on in the day, he spoke to Louise Goodman.
Dan, it's been a good day for you so far. Qualifying coming up, but you look to be in pretty good shape.
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think the whole team's doing okay. We're all trying a few different things, see what works. But I think we've got a good rhythm, good set. Me and Camish is not too much to split between us. I think Ash is trying a few things, and Sam's also on sort of some development path. So bits to come for qualifying, I guess.
Well, and a brand new qualifying format as well. Obviously, this is the first time that we're going to see the quick 6 format. How much are you looking forward to it, and how much is it going to change things for you?
Well, I think it'd be really good, for the fans. The championship always needs to shake up and move things on. I think people have become quite used to the 3 qualifying groups from Formula 1. Everyone's like trying to get to Q3, and it's a very similar setup now, really. You've got your 2 groups initially, which is, I'll have to get this right, odds and evens finish in FP2 with the 2 groups. So they get split, they do their individual qualifying session. Top 6 from those get into Group 2, qualifying 2, and the top 6 from that go into the quick 6 for a shootout, which I think is great. It adds another dynamic to the championship.
Does it add extra pressure for you as the driver to get through all of those, to make sure it's clean right from the outset?
You've got to do it 3 times now instead of just the once or maybe twice. And consistency last year wasn't our A game. So, yeah, I think it puts everyone in an extra level of pressure. But I think change is good, so hopefully it'll catch some people out, and old guys like me will have a bit more experience to try and keep calm,
See you out there.
Thank you.
So Dan Rowbottom, like the rest, is about to get his season underway in earnest. They've done the 2 free practice sessions this morning, the second of which had a little bit of rain just to add to the woes for the teams. They're trying to get the optimum setup. But in these really cold conditions, even though we're talking late April, it's still a very, very cold day here at Donington Park. picking a pole winner is going to be very difficult, isn't it?
It is, but, you know, as I said, they're all equal. All the favourites will be up there. The ones we've talked about, Napa Racing obviously had almost a lockout of pole positions last year. Such was their dominance. I don't think it'll be quite the same this year, but in this particular qualifying session, you know, you're looking at the favourites. Napa Racing, any one of their drivers, Tom Ingram, Tom Chilton's quick round here, although he's had problems in free practice with boost, but also the BMWs, as you said, if they can get their tyres working in that limited 10-minute window.
Let's just have a quick look at who's going to be in what group then, based on the results at the end of free practice. So Group 1, these are the drivers out on track first. Tom Ingram, Dan Camish, Mikey Doble, Adam Morgan, Aidan Moffat, Andrew Watson, Ronan Pearson, Aaron Taylor-Smith, Sam Osborne and Nick Halstead. Of course, it's a smaller grid anyway this year, and then you halve it again for the first part of qualifying. So I'm sure drivers will still moan about traffic, but in theory, around here, there should be space for everybody. Then the second group, Dan Rowbottom, Colin Turkington, Jake Hill, Rob Huff, Ash Sutton, Josh Cook, Darryl De Leon, Chris Smiley, Scott Sampton and Tom Chilton. Whether there's any benefit for being in Group 1 or Group 2 is debatable, and we'll learn a little bit more over the course of this session. And one of those key drivers in Group 2 is Rob Huff, and again, earlier on, he talked to Louise.
Well, Rob, you're about to hit to the track fairly shortly anyway for your first qualifying session. How much are you looking forward to this?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, new qualifying format. I mean, everything's new for me, isn't it? Let's be honest. Yeah, so first of all, it's like 2 10-minute qualifying, split grid from the free practice 2 results, odds and evens to see who's going to go through to Q3. So, yeah, Andrew's out in this one, and rain is ever closing in by the looks of it, and as we know, Donington only needs a little bit of precipitation to get very slippery. So yeah, I think it's going to be very exciting, it's going to be very interesting, and of course at some point someone's going to have an advantage, someone's going to have a disadvantage, and let's just all hope that plays out over the year equally for everyone.
Does it help for you that obviously you're new into the championship for a full season, having a lot of new things for everybody to get their heads around? So does it level the playing field slightly?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a full reset for everyone, but it is definitely, you know, a lot of the strategy, a lot of the deployment of the hybrid, the new qualifying systems. There is a lot of new things, so it's not a full reset, but yeah, I mean, I'm still getting my head around to how to drive the car, how it wants to be driven and how to get the most out of it, which a lot of these guys obviously have that advantage anyway. But yeah, for the way things are going to be running, it's quite easy for me because I just do what I'm told.
One thing in your favour is you know this circuit really well. This is a circuit that you've raced at a lot, one of the few UK circuits that you've raced at a lot.
Yeah, very much so. Obviously grew up doing a lot of racing here in the UK, and then have forever sort of come back and done historics and some Group C racing and raced, you know, everything. So yeah, the track I'm comfortable with. Like I said, it's just knowing, it's understanding how the car wants to be worked, how it wants to be warmed up, how to extract the most out of the tyres. And when we're dealing with such fine margins as we see in BTCC, those half-tenths, they add up, right? And you don't need a couple of tenths to be 10 places in either direction on the grid.
If you set yourself a target, what would you be happy with? What would you be disappointed with?
I'd be happy with getting a really good load of points this weekend just to start off. I'm not looking to set records in anything. I just want some good points. You know, just start off on a solid platform, come back with a car in one piece, give the boys as little work to do as possible over the next couple of weeks, and mainly enjoy it.
Well, that sounds like a good plan to me, and I hope this weather holds off. As you say, it's just starting to feel a little bit damp down here, so we'll see you out there in a bit, Huffy.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
And of course, if the rain sets in, then it will affect which group you're in, because it could be that the drier road is for Group 1 rather than Group 2. Let's just finish off these tweaks, Tim, before we get into the meat of qualifying, and that is hybrid, which for this year is a little bit different.
Yeah, very different. The baseline boost, turbo boost of the engines has been reduced a bit, but the hybrid function now is a combination of the electric motor and boost, and it's doubled in effectiveness in terms of power output. So when the drivers press the hybrid button out, they get a significant boost. We're talking sort of 40 horsepower plus, which is something the drivers really can feel. Well, 15 seconds of that is worth a lot of time. Certainly against a driver without it. That doesn't apply now in qualifying because they all have it. But once we get after race 1, it'll make a significant difference, I think, to the racing.
And drivers are saying when you come off that hybrid, it's like somebody grabbed you from behind and sort of yanks you backwards. It really, you can really feel it very markedly.
Yeah, the benefit is huge, and they don't use it all the way down every straight because they've only got 15 seconds on it. So there will be periods where they're coming off the hybrid button sort of halfway down the straight.
So Q1, Group 1 is underway. So it's half the field, remember, and it's for 10 minutes. And we're looking at the fastest 6 drivers from this group to progress. So it is about not being slow, if you like. You need to be in that magic top 6.
And as you can see from our cameras, we've got spitting rain coming, which is particularly difficult then for the front-wheel drive cars because they can't do a flying lap on cold rear tyres. They need to cross them, whereas the BMWs will be trying very hard to get some heat in and stay out. And in terms of BMWs, we've got Adam Morgan in this session. He could very well be in the pound seat at the moment.
How does Alan Gow know when the timetables are set that it's going to rain at exactly this moment that the lights go green at the end of the pit lane? It's uncanny. Right, so Adam Morgan, back for Team BMW, is one of the pioneers in Group 1. You can see Sam Osborne and Dan Camish, Tom Ingram, Ronan Pearson, Nick Halstead, Andrew Watson, Aidan Moffat, Mikey Doble and Aaron Taylor-Smith with him. Aidan Moffat, another of those drivers switching teams. The LKQ Euro car parts with Cinetic Toyota Corolla GR Sport. And on a greasy road, drivers trying to work out where they can push, where they need to be careful. Coming out of Coppice Corner, wiper on Don Camish's Napa Racing UK Ford. Remember, although we kind of think quite rightly about Ash Sutton's amazing season last year, Dan had 2 wins in the 3 races here at the start of the season. He had a great Donington last year.
Yeah, it started off brilliantly, didn't it? It didn't end so well with when he came back to Donington at the end of the year with that brake failure, massive accident and putting him out. So Donington last year was both good and bad for him, wasn't it? But you can see Adam Morgan pushing on already. Look, braking hard, accelerating hard, trying to generate as much heat as possible in those tyres. Interestingly, Camish has come in the pits just literally 1 out and 1 in, as has Ingram, whereas a lot of the other front-wheel drive cars have stayed out. I think Camish is desperate to get those tyres swapped over to the rear and try and get a flying lap in.
Yeah, and others that have pitted include now Ronan Pearson, Nick Halstead in as well. So Adam Morgan, sideways, coming out of the old hairpin, is going to be the first driver to really focus on here as he goes for a decent time. Steve Farrell, the very experienced Australian engineer, will be on the radio telling him exactly where he can and can't push and what the weather is doing around the circuit perhaps. And it is still starting to rain a little bit more heavily, I would suggest, where we are at the start and finish line, and you can see how Adam Morgan is struggling because that is a car that just does not have optimum traction, and of course the tyres are still not warm enough.
Yeah, and you could just see on the track surface where there was he was cutting a line through the dampness on the track, so it is quite damp to be out on slicks, but certainly not wet enough for wets, but he's trying desperately to get some temperature in those tyres. He will just stay out and build. So remember, this session is not about being fastest, it's not being in that bottom 4. The bottom 4 slowest cars will be eliminated. So the trick is just not to be in that group.
Yeah. Don't be slow, that's the answer. There's Andrew Watson then for Toyota Gazoo Racing UK, last year's Jack Sears Trophy champion. Goes across the line, he's on the hybrid as he comes over the line, and he goes quickest then on the 1:25.538. I know it's slightly different because of the conditions, but in free practice we were looking at 68 seconds and 67 seconds as the best times set by Tom Ingram across FP1 and FP2, but that was when it was largely dry. Now it's a completely different track surface.
But that was really brave because Watson didn't pit to swap his tyres out. He stayed out. He could see the weather was getting worse and he stayed out, and you could see the car sliding through Redgate. He's really on tippy toes as far as the rear grip is concerned, but it served him well. If the track gets wetter now, he will have that time banked.
Because he's also gone and done another absolute best within the first sector. Donington divided into 3 sectors. The first one is down through the Craner Curves, the second one comes out of Coppice, the third is at the timing line. This is Adam Morgan, and that's Nick Halstead off the road and trying to get himself back onto the tarmac without stopping on the grass, which might trigger a stoppage to the session. The car did seem to have a hiccup in FP1 where it was slow for a few laps, but right now Adam Morgan is hustling on. He's coming down towards the chicane. Sam Osborne has gone third. Adam braking really early, it seems, as he tries to work out where the grit is, but these are hellish conditions for the drivers because they're neither wet nor dry.
No, you could see the car sliding there as he tried to put the power down. Here comes Andrew Watson back into the pits. Is he coming in? Yes, he is. He's decided he will not go any quicker.
Yeah.
That lap was his one and only lap in terms of getting the conditions right. A very good shout from him.
Andrew Watson quickest, Adam Morgan second, the margin 0.3 of a second, but we still have only got 3 lap times on the board. Watson, Morgan and Osborne. So Camish, Ingram, Moffat, Doble, Taylor Smith, Pearson, Halstead. They've not really done a proper lap time as yet. They've done a lap into the pit lane in some cases, but they haven't done a proper flying lap. So eyes on Camish now. He doesn't have to be fastest, he just has to be in the top 6.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth getting, that's the importance in this session of getting a banker lap in, getting a lap time on the board. Because if the conditions do deteriorate, which they have, you're never going to go quicker than you did at the beginning. So if Camish completes this lap, he will at worst be 5th or 4th, won't he? Because no other lap times have been set.
And only 4 minutes to go, so that if they haven't got a time, they need to hustle on. I mean, really, we're talking about one proper flying run. You're on board now with Tom Ingram coming out of the chicane. Dan Camish went second. He was only a 10th off Andrew Watson on the 125.6. Tom Ingram comes up to the pit lane again, so he has still not done a lap, even though Ingram did an absolute best speed on that in lap. But clearly, he's not happy with something, and he's running out of time to do a lap.
Unless they're coming in to swap tyres over again, I'm not sure why more people aren't trying to set a lap time. Maybe they were hoping that the conditions got a little bit better, but as you say, David, there's only 3.5 minutes to go. You need to be out there and trying to build some tyre temperature.
Well, Aidan Moffat, who remember started his racing career on stock car ovals and always revels in greasy conditions, unfavourable conditions, he has gone 4th fastest now on a 126.156. So there's only a 10th in it for the fastest time between Watson and Camish. We've yet to get a lap out of Ingram, Doble, Taylor Smith, Pearson and Nick Halstead we think has stopped. He's pulled off rather than spun off, but the car is not circulating. So Nick Halstead is out because he can't retaliate, if you like, and Aidan Moffat presses on. Now, what about this lap for the Scottish driver? He's on the hybrid right now. He's done a personal best within the first sector, but he's down in the middle sector.
The conditions don't really appear to have changed that much. You can see how twitchy that is on the rear. Trying to get the power down, get the steering lock unlocked, but he's going in the pits.
Bales. Mikey Doble then, the driver that broke that Napa Racing pole position dominance that Tim was touching on earlier on when he was quickest at Silverstone. I'm hesitating because Aidan Moffat has had a lap time disallowed for track limits offences. But for the moment, he's still 4th. Mikey Doble then, yet to do a lap. Adam Morgan goes quickest. So although Andrew Watson had pitted, he's gone back out. Adam Morgan, by 1.5 seconds, has gone faster than anybody. So that suggests it is drying out. As over the timing line comes Mikey Doble, goes second. 124.073, 56 thousandths down on Adam Morgan. With 2 minutes to go, the road looks like it's getting a bit more user-friendly.
Yeah, everyone needs to be out now. Everybody needs to be out, and indeed they are all on their out laps. In fact, Camish. Pearson has set the fastest first sector.
Yeah, Camish is the one that's in the pit lane at the moment. But other than that, pretty much everybody, as you say, is on track. Ronan Pearson then presses on. And he, as Tim says, has done an absolute best in the first sector. Now, Tom Ingram is 7th and in need of a lap. Taylor Smith hasn't done a proper lap. Ronan Pearson likewise, and we're following Ronan Pearson, who went so well here last year prior to a ride height drama, and of course went so well at Knock Hill on home soil. Wet weather races both. Up towards the line he comes. Is Ronan Pearson going to go top as he breaks the beam? Yes, he is, and that's in the 1:17s. He's 6 seconds quicker than anybody else.
Like, Camish has suddenly realised the track is getting quicker. He thought his time was good enough, but he's not going to get round in time to start a lap. He could actually be knocked out.
And why go out when you can't get round in time? So it's a bit of a...
It was a panic. They realised too late the track was getting quicker. He thought his time was good enough early on and the track wasn't getting quicker. Suddenly they realised it was, and he hasn't got time to respond.
So here comes Ingram up towards the line, and as he goes through, Tom Ingram's lap time is not yet shown. Now, is that because of a glitch in the transponder or a track limit offence? Well, Tom Ingram needs to push because there's less than a lap time left in the session. Mikey Doble's time removed for track limit offences. Andrew Watson is back to the top into the 16s now, 116.1. You're riding with Ingram, who comes now down towards the old hairpin.
Fastest first sector.
Indeed so, but he's got to be mindful of track limits because that's what's catching out the others. Camish is 5th, he's on the bubble.
He's right on the bubble. I suspect this lap will put Ingram into the top 6.
And
Mikey Doble lost the lap time.
Yeah, checkered flag is out as Ronan Pearson has gone through and he's the first one to take the flag. So Ingram then up to the end of the second section, riding with him. He's looking precise, he's looking good, he's looking quick and tidy. He's on the hybrid then now as he comes on to Starkey Straight up to the end of the second sector. This is Mikey Doble. He's got to try and fight back. Also, Aaron Taylor-Smith is in need of a lap time. Taylor-Smith comes through. Is that going to get him into the top 6 as he breaks the beam? Yes, he goes quickest into the 15s. Aaron Taylor-Smith goes fastest. Ingram across the line, and as he finds a gear, Ingram goes quickest. That puts Camish 7th now, because also into the mix, Mikey Doble to be 5th. So Camish is out.
That was what I feared from that long stay in the pits. He missed the best of the track. He'll be absolutely livid with himself. And possibly the team for not informing him quick enough to get him back out. The team should have been watching and realised immediately that quicker lap time came up. I think it was from Watson that went, or Morgan that went a second and a half quicker. That was the time to get out. So first shock of the BTC season is that Dan Camish is out in the first qualifying group.
And I think also I'm right in saying Adam Morgan, because he was 7th, Camish in the end was 8th. So 2 race-winning drivers, 2 big names out already.
And they both made the same mistake, not getting out as the track improved.
And a real spread of times because of the nature of some setting the times when it was dry, some when it was wet. But Tom Ingram then doing a lap in the end in the 1:14s. No time from Nick Halstead. So we've lost Halstead, Moffat, Camish and Morgan. In other words, in are Ingram, Taylor-Smith, Watson, Pearson, Doble and Osborne. So they are the 6 drivers that will progress into the second part of qualifying. But we've got the other half of the entry yet. So as the last few cars come into the pit lane, the second group, Rowbottom, Turkington, Hill, Huff, Sutton, Cook, De Leon, Smiley, Scott Sumpton, newcomer, Tom Chilton, they'll all be ready to go.
Well, that was right on the bubble, though, for Tom Ingram, wasn't it? Literally on the very last lap.
Yeah. Right, well, the pit lane is going to get busy now with cars coming in, cars going out. And I would not want to be a fly on the wall in that garage once Dan Camish gets out of the car. Door slammed, not quite as forcibly as I was expecting, but there will be words had, I'm sure, like you say, with the team, because ultimately they make the call as to when to release the car.
Yeah, he was plenty quick enough to do it, just wasn't out on the track at the right time.
Disgruntled Dan Camish walks away. Let's have a look at the order then at the end of Q1 Group 1. Tom Ingram is the fastest. He progresses, as also do Aaron Taylor-Smith, Andrew Watson, Ronan Pearson, Mikey Doble and Sam Osborne. Out of qualifying already, Adam Morgan, Dan Camish, Aidan Moffat and Nick Halstead never got a time on the board. It looked as though from the way the car was driving off the road, it was a mechanical issue rather than a spin that had put him off. So more work for Team Bristol Street Motors to do. Right, well, we promised you a few surprises. They've happened already then. Camish and Morgan, the 2 big scalps claimed from Q1 Group 1. And the other half of the entry is now ready to go because the green flag is being shown at the end of the pit lane. So we're in business. The second half of the entry now ventures out on track. And dare one say they've ended up with a slightly better road, haven't they? Because the conditions now, as we saw at the end of Q1 Group 1, were drying out. So these drivers start on a faster track. Now, it's not the fastest 6 overall, no matter what group. It is the top 6 out of the 2 respective groups. So it's only the times within your group that you're really focusing on.
Absolutely, just as same as part 1 that we just had, exactly the same. You just need to be in the top 6 of this to progress through.
Now, why is Rob Huff not being allowed down the pit lane? Let's go to Louise in the pit lane. Louise, what news?
Well, the news I have, and Sam Richards, who is the man you can see standing in front of the car there, grabbed me just as I was walking down the pit lane, and from what I understand, it's a procedural issue. Rob's car wasn't in the pit lane at the start of the session, so because of that, that's contravening a regulations that says all cars have to be in the pit lane at the start of the first session. So because of that, Rob is not being allowed to take part in this session. So that's my understanding of what's happening here. Obviously the team slightly confused by it as well because they'd sent him out. So that's what I'm hearing.
The only other thing I would say is that I've just picked up that Rob Huff was on wets. He was on the blue sidewall wet tyre. I do wonder whether the guys that went quicker at the end of session 1 were on wets. They might well have been, but we'll see.
So, if Rob Huff is not allowed to take part in the session, that is his qualifying done.
Yes, he's one of the 4 out.
Exactly. And by the sound of it, if the car was in its garage and not on the apron, then that is why it was not ready to take part in the session, and Rob Huff will not be very amused about that, in the same way that Dan Camnich is not massively amused about his departure. Right, let's concentrate for the moment then on those that are on the track, including the reigning champion, Ash Sutton.
As he goes down the Craner curve through Hollywood, flick the car left. He won't be fully committed at this point because you're leaning on the right rear tyre, which is the coldest tyre on the car, but he will get on it even harder as he gets confidence in that rear tyre temperature. Coming up towards McLean's, flat through the left-hander, brake in a straight line. You could turn in from the middle of the road there and use the curb to hook the car and rotate it. And then you come up to McLean's, a blind turn, and you can't see the apex, but you know it's there just based on the thousands of laps you've done over the past, and you're doing it almost on autopilot. And then building the speed, using a bit of hybrid down the straight if you want to, and then it's a case of spotting your braking point, not going into the chicane too fast, so you get a really good exit. It's a lovely chicane that. It's a bowl shape going in and out. And Sutton comes across the line fastest at the moment at 12.6.
Which is therefore faster than anybody was doing in Group 1. So proof that the road is even drier.
And he looked at, I'm pretty sure he was on wets as well. There were blue sidewalls on those tyres, which is wets.
Okay, that's Colin Turkington, who has, at the end of his first effort, gone 4th, and Jake Hill is 2nd. So Sutton, Hill, Cook, Turkington, Sumpton, Chilton, De Leon. Rowbottom has pitted without a time. Smiley has not yet done a time. And we haven't got, as we know, Rob Huff on track. So that's why it's 9 cars circulating at the moment. There'll be some questions being asked down in the Toyota Gazoo Racing UK garage.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, although it has dried a bit, the guys are, look at the sidewalls while the car's going a bit slower, David, because they look blue to me rather than, they're very obviously yellow if they're on the slick tyres, because it's the medium compound, and that to me, I don't see any yellow on those sidewalls.
No, indeed. So, but we also know that the road is getting a bit drier. Chris Smiley was on yellow sidewall tyres for Restart Racing, back into the championship race winner Chris Smiley. That's Daryl De Leon in the Duckham's Racing with
you see, he's on mediums. The yellow sidewall, very obvious, isn't it?
Right, Sutton is the fastest, and almost everybody is pitting, except for there looks Scott Sumpton, who's been off the road. You can see the grass he's picked up at the front of the car. TCR graduate into BTCC, and a lap time disallowed for Tom Chilton, being engineered this year by Barry Plowman, but Tom's had a lap time taken off him. Winner here at this meeting last year.
Sutton was on wets, so that's I can confirm that when he came in the pits. Bearing in mind, as you said, David, the dry times, a pure dry tie is a sort of 8.0. Last year it was a 7.6 for pole, but we're looking for a low 8. So we're 4 seconds off a dry time, which is, you know, but I'm looking at it now. It looks almost ready for slicks.
Well, Chris Smiley was on slicks, and he stayed on slicks. You'll see the yellow sidewall as he turns now into Redgate Corner. TCR UK champion 2 years ago, and coming back into the BTCC. That's last year's pole winner here, Dan Rowbottom, pressing on in the Napa Racing UK Ford, and he's got Scott Sumpton ahead of him on the road with 4 minutes on the clock. Rowbottom hasn't yet done a lap time, and nor has Chris Smiley. Now, what's Rowbottom on in terms of tyres? Is he on wets? Yes. Doesn't look yellow,
so he's trying to get a banker lap in. But I think the cars, anyone on slicks, I reckon if they get temperature, they could be quicker now. It certainly hasn't drizzled for quite a long time, has it?
No. And this is Rowbottom's flying lap. So by the time he's finished this, the road is going to be even drier. And those wets, look, just don't want to work anymore. He's sliding wide out of Redgate.
Well, that was track limits. And it's qualifying, so you don't get a second chance. That is absolutely, this lap will be taken away. Look at the car sliding about. It's all over the place.
So nervous, isn't it? It's just no grip whatsoever, seemingly. It's all over the road, and Rowbottom's having to really fight it to get anything out of it. He's done a personal best. Whoopee. Rob Huff out of the car, out of the session.
I mean, one thing this new qualifying session is doing is it's forcing the teams to think on their feet. They need to be on top of it. Look, Sutton's now on dry tyres. He's on yellow sidewall medium tyres. He's on slicks. I think the reason that Rowbottom was sliding around so much is it's too dry for the wets.
Yeah.
He's literally turning them into jelly.
But the problem is that even if he comes
He
in
hasn't
now,
got time.
he's going to run out of time potentially, as long as he's finished an out lap. But let's see, he's going to pit. He is going to pit this. That car's all over the road. Come what may, this has got to be an absolutely demon tyre change to get him round to do an out lap in time.
Jake Hill weaving like crazy, trying to get some temperature in his tyres.
Sutton's in, and he's the fastest. Here he is, coming down the pit lane. Rowbottom, 6th fastest.
Yeah, that was Sutton doing an out lap on slicks. He's going to cross them over, and he's still fastest though, but the times could drop massively if they can. Look at how fast the boys are racing, the slicks being crossed over. The time is running down. He needs to get out as quickly as possible.
Rowbottom's time taken off him for track limits, is predicting. This is Chris Smiley, who is looking good on his slicks and goes fastest on a 1:11.937. He's got a weaving Tom Chilton ahead of him, but Chris Smiley makes a dive on the inside. Josh Cook now goes quicker, 1:11.500, so 4/10 to the good. So Rowbottom, no time, and out. De Leon, out. Chilton, out. They are the three that have got to try to dig deep.
Yeah, it's definitely slicks, folks, for the last 1:47. Did Sutton get out the pits in time? I didn't see, but he needs a good 1:20 sort of to get round. De Leon goes quicker. Daryl De Leon goes quickest.
1:10 now, 0.506. That's nearly a full second to the good. So it's De Leon, Cook, Turkington, Smiley, Sutton, Hill. Rowbottom is out, Sumpton is out, Chilton is out, and Huff is out. Huff was never in the sense because he wasn't allowed onto the track. This is Ash Sutton then on an out lap, but he's trying to get everything hooked up. He'll be able to do a flyer. Rowbottom has now put himself 7th on a 1:15, but he's got to do better than that.
He's not going to go any quicker, is he, now on the wets? But Sutton is going to have one lap and one lap only. He mustn't do a track limits infringement, and he got black flagged for track limit infringements in free practice, so it'll be down to him. Here's Daryl De Leon in the Duckham's Racing with Barter card entry from Ultimate Motorsport. It's a Cupra, and it looks stunning in that livery.
And lessons learned in the championship last year being put to good effect. Colin Turkington's going to be quick on this lap. Josh Cook's gone back to the top, 1:10.033. This is Colin Turkington, and Colin heads up towards the timing line. Daryl De Leon goes back to the top in the 9s. Turkington's second. He's only 5 thousandths shy, but second he is.
But crucially, he gets another lap. He's crossed the line with 20 seconds to go, as has Hill. They will get another lap. This is the only lap that Ash Sutton will get, and he's quickest in the first sector.
Rowbottom's been through and went no faster, as Tim was predicting he would not, because the tyres have had their best. The checkered flag is imminent. The clock hits 0 now, and that means that subject to anything on this last lap of the session, out are Chilton, Rowbottom, Sumpton and Huff.
But as I suspected, Turkington has now got the quickest first sector. It's not going to matter too much because they're going to be through in the top 6. Those on the bubble at the moment are Sumpton. Rowbottom, as we know, is on wet. Sutton, but he's going to improve on this lap. And Chilton. Is Chilton on a lap?
Yeah, Chilton's the vulnerable one. He's 6th. If Sutton gets into the top 6, that's at the expense of Chilton. And he does. He goes fastest in the group, 1:09.579. So Chilton is out, unless he can do anything. No, Chilton's taken the flag, so he's done. Rowbottom isn't going any faster in sectors. He's done. And that's Colin Turkington to go fastest into the 8s now, 68.772. You've got to say, this is a really grim session for Napa Racing at the moment, as Hill goes second now.
Yeah, followed by those BMWs timed it perfectly. His Rowbottom sliding around on his absolutely chewed up wets that have just literally fallen apart as the track has dried. So 2 of Napa's race winners have gone out. 2 pole sitters from last year, 2 race winners. They've got the tactics all wrong so far in this new style qualifying, apart from Sutton, who has gone through, and Osborne, who went through in the first section.
Indeed. And that's Scott Sumpton, new to the British Touring Car Championship for Ben Taylor's Restart Racing team. And that's Ash Sutton, who can breathe a sigh of relief. He's 4th, but he's in, and that's 7th and out for Tom Chilton. How do we like qualifying so far?
Loving it, loving it, loving it. Everything's going on. The teams are not getting their strategy right and putting pressure on drivers. I love it.
And a few surprises, not only in terms of those that have gone through, but equally those that have been bumped out already. So we have now our 12 that will go forward into Q2 out of the first group. Ingram, Taylor Smith, Watson, Pearson, Doble, Osborne. Out of that group we've just seen, Turkington, Hill, De Leon, Sutton, Cook, Smiley. And we whittle that 12 down to 6. Now, of course, the track's slightly busier than before when we had 10 cars out, or should have had 10 cars out. Now we will have 12. And Dan Rowbottom there is going to be decidedly grumpy.
He can go and join the Dan Cam grumpy camp, can't he?
Yes.
It'll be at least we know it'll definitely be slicks in the next part.
Yeah, indeed. But a bit of a quandary as to why teams weren't more on top of when to switch the tyres over. Well, Colin Turkington ends Q1 Group 2 as the fastest, ahead of Jake Hill. The car being ran out of the same stable, even if it's under a different livery and different team name. Daryl De Leon, perhaps one of the real surprises, to be third, ahead of the reigning champion Ash Sutton. Josh Cook, his first season in a Toyota, he's fifth, and returning to the championship race winner Chris Smiley, he is sixth. Tom Chilton is out, Dan Rowbottom is out, Scott Sumpton out, and Rob Huff out, and that was not the fairy tale return to the championship that Huffy was anticipating.
No, it certainly isn't. And look, these things happen when you change the format. Teams are so used to the old format that they just forgot to get their car out for part 2 in time. It had to be in the pit lane. They were probably making changes to the setup or doing something based on the weather and just didn't thinking, oh, we're in part 2, we've got plenty of time. But rules is rules.
And this, again, is all part of the championship, isn't it? You look at an entry list and you think, yeah, well, he's a good driver and that's a good car. He'll go well. But it's as much as the team and the team's processes as well as to how all that fits together. Right, we know who's going into Q2, but there are some stories to clear up from Q1, Louise.
There are indeed, and obviously one of those big stories is, I think it's fair to say, a frustrating session for the guys down here at Napa Racing. Ollie Collins, just explain to us some of the issues that you had in that session, basically with processes and the weather combined.
I don't think it was a process, it was the weather, and we clearly made the wrong decision. We went out on slicks, it got a little damper, it was in the middle of slicks. I think if we'd gone out on wets we would have been okay, if we'd stayed on slicks we would have been okay, but we made the decision halfway through to go to wets, and it was clearly a disastrous decision because we've got the pace this weekend, we know we've got the pace, and unfortunately round 1 Dan doesn't get to show it in qualifying. Hopefully it doesn't affect our race 1 tomorrow too badly, or race weekend too badly.
And obviously Dan Rowbottom next door as well, there's been a similar kind of problem there, it's the other way around.
Yeah, similar thing. He obviously opted for the wet, and at the time that he opted it was actually the right thing to do. The reaction time, it's easy to say in hindsight, but others reacted better than what we did in that situation. And unfortunately, we've had a bit of a disastrous opening session.
Well, Dan, you're obviously on the receiving end. You're the guy who's going to have to deal with this. Probably fair to say you're not the massive fan of the quick 6 qualifying session as it stands right now.
I was looking forward to it. I'll be honest with you, though, the second that I was in the car looking at the sky, thinking today's gone very well. We've got a lot of speed in this car, and I thought if there's one thing that can undo this, it's going to be this, what we've just had, basically a scramble to the line, not knowing if you should be on the wet or the slick. When I actually did the cross lap, I actually thought I should be on the wet here because, yes, I'm going to destroy them in 2 laps, one lap, 20 seconds even, but I'll be 4 or 5 seconds off the dry time. As it happens, I was miles off a dry time, so the time to swap was early on. Or don't swap at all. The mistake we made, and obviously we'll debrief and understand, is that the maths were wrong. When we made the call, I was called in for the change for wets. We didn't have enough time to get back out. I could not complete the lap, so just one of those things. It's a shame because we are very quickly, but tomorrow's another day, and I feel confident in this car and team that you'll see me at the sharp end this weekend. Just not the start of race 1, but maybe by the end of race 1.
Hope so. Back to you guys.
Louise, thanks. And Dan Camish forcing a smile, but we know he's a good racer. And if anybody can make progress, then it's going to be Dan Cam. But he's not alone. I mean, there are already 4 big names you can point to. Camish, Rowbottom, Morgan, Huff, that have got to get through the pack.
Exactly. And it may not be in race 1 when everyone's still got the same amount of hybrid, but boy, will he come through in race 2 and 3 when they will have a lot more hybrid than the cars in front.
Sorry, 5 names coming through. I forgot Chiltern.
Yes.
6 because there's ... Well, we know the back of the grid. Now we need to worry about the middle of the grid, and then we can sort out the front of the grid in Q3. So 12 cars, 10 minutes. Countdown is almost done. We await a green flag at the end of the pit lane. The teams are ready to fire the cars back onto the pit lane. And credit to the Duckham's Racing with Bartercard team. It's all been very, very late to get this car on the grid. It was only being wrapped in its livery last night. Clothing, I think, was still arriving this morning for the team to wear. And there it is through into Q2. It's a great effort.
It is a great effort. Fair play to them. And the cars run reliably so far in both free practices.
Yep.
In different conditions. They've done a very, very good job. And let's see what they can do now. We will now have 12 cars out with the fastest 6 going into the final qualifying. One item that is important to note is that the teams can only have 1 set of tyres to use in this session, and assuming it stays dry, and not they can have wet, but if it's dry, they have 1 set of tyres to use in this session and the next.
So, with the road clear, the countdown, the sort of break in between sessions coming to its close. Everybody on the pit apron, the teams will pull back the car, fire it down the pit lane, and then the real scramble begins. Now this time we don't have to worry about the weather and that changing. Now we can concentrate, back to Tim's point at the start of the session, about speed, about bravery, about drivers putting everything on the line.
Well, let's see how close they get to those free practice times. Remember, that was sort of basically an 8-0. The teams have actually got less overall power without the hybrid than they had last year, but with the hybrid they have more. So I would have expected in ideal conditions to have been in the 7s and in the mid 7s, but we're not in those conditions. But we'll get a gauge of how good the track is when we start seeing some lap times in the low 8s.
Now for the moment, although it's very overcast, it is not raining. It might do yet because the forecast has been showery for the day. But there, Daryl de Leon ventures out on track. Sutton, Osborne, Turkington Hill, Ingram, Pearson, Watson, Cook, Doble, Taylor Smith, Smiley, de Leon are your 12 drivers for 10 minutes as the clock ticks on down. And again, it's going to be interesting to see who the 6 are that we lose, where the surprises might come from. 1 or 2 names you might think, yeah, I can cross them off with this, but you're not going to get to crossing 6 off without a lot of thought.
If the qualifying so far has taught us anything, is assume nothing.
Indeed,
and,
yes.
Don't cross anyone's name off. Colin Turkington, interestingly, running number 20 this year to celebrate his 20 years in the British Touring Car Championship. He hasn't done every year since 2002 when he started as that impecunious youngster with Team Atomic Kitten, but because he went off and did some European racing. But this is his 20th of full season racing in the UK.
And there's another championship in many believe, including Colin. So he comes across the line. Ash Sutton stayed out, look, rather than come in for a tyre cross.
Yeah, well, this is a 10-minute session, and with it looking dry now, he may well do at least 1 drive past, as he has done. Might even do 2 before crossing the tyres.
I think everybody with front-wheel drive is thinking that as well, because I'm not seeing anybody coming into the pit lane, although Sam Osborne's about to make a liar out of me. Yes, he is the one that is in. So Sam Osborne, who was the last man up to the line, does come into the pits. The other 11 have stayed out, whether they're front or rear-wheel drive. So Sam Osborne back to his pit box, and now we'll start to piece the laps together with Turkington doing the absolute best within sector 1.
Yeah, obviously the BMWs will of Turkington and Hill will set their quickest laps straight away because there won't be any tyre crossing. Well, it may not be their quickest, but they'll certainly be on the pace quicker than the front-wheel drive cars who are all swapping their tyres over. So you have to wait a couple of laps before you get a representative time. So this will probably be the quickest time even that we've seen so far, as the track is drier than it has been at any point in qualifying, and he comes across line. It's a 12-0. I think we were just in the 11s before, but that was still a warm-up lap for him. Look at the furious weaving from Jake Hill.
And now look at all the front-wheel drive cars in the background coming in for their tyre cross. So they did 1 drive-by, other than Sam Osborne, who pitted at the end of his opening lap, but now the pit lane gets busy. There's Ash Sutton in, Ingram is in as well, so is Andrew Watson, so is Josh Cook, Ronan Pearson and Mikey Doble. And Andrew Watson's had a lap taken off him for track limit offences.
Well, that didn't take long, did it? It's only just gone out.
Good news is it was an in lap, so it didn't really matter in the end.
No. One thing though, if you're on a flying lap and you exceed track limits coming out of the final chicane, you also lose the lap time for the next lap because you've gained an advantage in speed across the line. So teams need to remember that, drivers need to remember that.
So it hits you twice, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You lose 2 laps, not just the one, because obviously the speed you benefit by exceeding the track limits gives you that advantage onto the subsequent laps. Sutton is away, back into the session. Turkington is going to offer up the benchmark time here because he's done 2 absolute bests. His opening salvo was a 1:12. This should be much, much better then as he comes up towards the timing line. He's on the hybrid, comes up, breaks the beam now and does a 1:10.166.
So we're a couple of seconds off the ultimate time, but clearly dry enough to get the slicks working. And Turkington will gradually improve that time as well as he does more laps and gets more temperature in the tyres.
Darrell de Leon up towards the timing line in the Cupra. That's going really nicely, which is great to see. 1:10.957. He's on the pace, isn't he? He's going all right.
Although his front splitter's becoming detached a little bit. That looked like it was vibrating, coming loose. Doesn't want that coming off completely.
Yes, you don't want the vibrating splitters, definitely. No.
You see it dripping down in the middle.
Yeah.
Look, that's going to break sooner or later.
And the passenger side windows trying to give up the ghost and make a bid for freedom. So,
yes.
I think that's a pit stop due, Darrell, to get a bit of tank tape on various bits of the car. And they're advised to bring the car in themselves before the scrutineers want it in.
Yeah.
This is Colin Turkington then, back down towards the chicane.
2 more purple sectors, so this will be quicker again. As I said, with the BMW, just build lap time, build lap time. This will be in the 9s, obviously. It's actually a 9:1, so he took a second off on that lap.
Okay.
He's not done yet either.
No, you're looking on the inset at Ash Sutton's on board as he presses on, and now at Tom Ingram on the main picture as he comes up towards the timing line. So only 3 drivers have set a lap because those that did a tyre cross now are into a run. So this is the start of a proper flying lap, a proper push lap for Tom Ingram.
Yeah, and Sutton as well is a bit further round the lap. He's already on the approach up to McLean's.
Sam Osborne, who crossed the tyres earlier, remember, he's gone second on a 1:10. This is Ash Sutton coming out of McLean's, still trying to get the warmth from the rubber, look, going left and right, weaving around to generate temperature.
Yeah, Sam Osborne effectively a lap ahead of these guys, isn't he? Because he didn't do the extra lap, but certainly he got temperature. Got temperature in the rears enough to push on. Sutton moving over for Turkington. Turkington quicker again on the first 2 sectors. He just gets quicker every lap as he gets more and more temperature. So this is going to be in the 8s. How low in the 8s is it going to be? Probably a mid-8, I would guess. Yeah, bang on, an 8.5.
Yeah, not bad. He's done this before.
Anyone would think,
yes, 3.5 minutes of the session to go. So now it's pressure time, isn't it? Those without a lap time have got to press on, and now we'll start to see who drops out of the top 6. This is where it gets really interesting as you look at Josh Cook then in the ultra smart LKQ Euro car parts with Cinetic Corolla coming out of Redgate Corner, plunging down the hill, and he is currently 9, so he will miss the cut unless he can dig deep on this next lap.
Well, he'll definitely go quicker, but effectively they got enough time for 2 or 3 laps depending on where they are on the lap. All the front-wheel drive cars have now crossed their tyres, so they're all on flying laps. They will run to the end for another couple of laps or so, because even on the front-wheel drive car it helps to build tyre temperature and confidence, particularly down the craners.
Ash Sutton is 12. He's the slowest at the moment. He won't be 12 for much longer, I wouldn't have thought, with a personal and an absolute best. But where will this catapult him to? Will it put him top? Will it put him ahead of Turkington and maybe into the low 8s? The answer as he breaks the beam is yes! 1:08.020. From 12th to top, he's quicker by just under half a second. How about that?
That is a very good lap time. It's actually quicker than anything. Oh no, we saw a 7.9 in fairness from Ingram in session 1, but effectively that's bang on the pace.
Andrew Watson across the line, last year's Jack Sears Trophy winner, and he will go 5th fastest, so he's in the Magic 6. Cook is out at the moment, so is Taylor Smith. Change all that because Josh Cook goes briefly up into the top 6 and then gets elbowed back. Ronan Pearson is 5th. So those that missed the cut at the moment, deep breath, Osborne, Cook, Taylor Smith, Doble, Smiley and De Leon. And some of that shuffling was because Darrell De Leon had a lap time taken off him for track limit offences. This is Mikey Doble coming out of the chicane, heading up towards the timing line. He is currently 10th. pole winner at Silverstone last year, and he is up to 8th, but that's not enough.
No, so the important thing to do is to watch the clock, 1 minute 35 to go, and remember it's a 1 minute 8 or 9 second lap, so depending on where you are on the track will depend whether you've got 1 or 2 laps left. This is Ash Sutton, he's got this lap and 1 more to come, because he'll have plenty of time to do it. In fact, he'll get 2 more laps, won't he? Because he'll cross the line. Oh, red flag.
And that's why Sam Osborne is off the road, and that looks like it's down at the old hairpin, sort of McLean's-Schrott's curve area.
Yeah, quite. That's on the exit of the old he's swung round and gone into the right-hand side, so he's lost the rear going round the corner.
Ash Sutton's had a lap time taken off him for track limit offences, and now we will await to see whether the session is going to be resumed with 5 minutes on the clock, which is at the organiser's discretion.
I believe it will be. But
yeah. So this is how it happened. He's off the road. Oh yes, he spun across the track, hasn't he, coming out of the old hairpin across the circuit where the old spark plug commentary box used to be.
Yeah, so we didn't see the start of that, but I'm assuming he got out wide and the rear probably touched the wet tarmac, wet curbs, and spun him round. But yeah, it's not been a good session so far for Napa Racing, has it? They've now got a damaged car. They've got 2 cars out in the first part of qualifying, so it's not been a good day. So it's being left to Sutton, who is quickest at the moment, though.
Yeah. Leave it to me, lads. I'll save the day.
Leave it. I'm the champion. Yeah, I know how to do this.
Yeah. I'll just go and get pole. Yeah. Having said that, he's had a lap time taken off him, and another lap time disallowed for Sam Osborne, just to add insult to injury.
Yeah, I think when you crash, you pretty much have exceeded track limits.
It's on the excessive side, certainly. I agree.
That's just cruel, isn't it?
It is rather.
It's rather cruel.
Well, Sam's okay. That's the main thing, and hopefully the damage is not too great. The Toka medical team will just go check him over. He'll go to the medical centre, any impact, large or small. And of course, part of the problem, we've had so much rain of late that the grass verges are so wet and slippery. There's barely any traction at all, and once you're on the grass, you're just a passenger.
You are. You're not going to slow that car down. It's a fast corner, that as well. Taking it around 100 mile an hour. So yeah, it's a quick corner. So just to refer back, those who are in the top 6 are Sutton, Ingram, Turkington, Hill, Pearson and Andrew Watson. Those outside the top 6 are Mikey Dougall, Josh Cook, surprisingly, Aaron Taylor-Smith, Sam Osborne, Chris Smiley and Darryl De Leon. And we'll just wait to see whether we get an additional 5 minutes added on.
Yeah, because Ian Watson, who is the clerk of the course, will be looking at the timetable. And as we await news on that, let's just tick off another story from Q1, the demise of Rob Huff. Rob's with Louise.
Yeah, I'm getting all the frustrating stories at the moment. The good news stories will come later, but that wasn't part of the plan that we spoke about earlier, was it, Huffy?
No, that was supposed to be the first qualifying of the year, wasn't it? Yeah, no, very frustratingly. We weren't allowed out, which was a surprise to me to see Sam obviously stood in the middle of the pit lane.
There's no much getting past Sam, is there?
No, you wouldn't want to fight with him, would you? Yeah, unfortunately, there's a rule that says if the car's not ready, we thought we could be ready for our qualifying because we were repairing damage from FP2, and apparently not. You've got to be ready for the other qualifying. So if the car's not in the pit lane, you're not allowed out. Yeah, is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's going to be there's some heavy hitters that are going to be starting towards the back with you. So there's still all to play for come race day, isn't there?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, you know, we've raced from the back many, many times and come through with success. So tomorrow, hopefully, will be no different. But yeah, I mean, frustrating for the team, frustrating for me. It's just not nice, is it? But hey ho.
Is what it is. I'm glad to see you're still smiling.
We push on.
See you out there tomorrow. Back to you guys.
Well, we like these reverse grid races, don't we? And the first one is a reverse grid race now by the sound of it. As we keep saying, there are so many big names to come through from the back. But yeah, just to clarify what Rob's saying, all cars have to be ready for the start of Q1 Group 1. Even if you're in Group 2, the car has to be ready and on the pit apron. Theirs wasn't. That was the
yeah, because otherwise you'd be giving an unfair advantage to those in Group 2 to work longer on their cars. So they have to all be ready to go at the start, which is fair. And the team should have had him out, but apparently they were repairing damage. That was minor damage, probably from hitting the tyres at the chicane, I think, in FP2. But nevertheless, car should have been out.
3 more minutes of this session is what has been given to the
Okay.
drivers. So 3 minutes. So it becomes a slightly longer session in effect. So of those 3 minutes, you take an out lap.
You'll get 1 lap.
You get a flying lap. You can't afford a tire cross,
It's
can you?
not really going to help many people, is it?
No.
It's not going to help people. Those who are outside the top 6, particularly Josh Kirk, Aaron Taylor-Smith, Mikey Doble, they would have liked a few more minutes to have gone quicker.
Is it worth going out?
Not if you're Ash Sutton.
No,
Absolutely no
okay.
point. Because don't forget, he's got to use those same tyres for the next session. So why put any extra mileage on them? He's definitely going to go through with that time.
You'd have thought so.
So
wouldn't you? Yeah.
I see no reason for Ash Sutton or Tom Ingram or Turkington. Hills on the bubble, but I don't think anyone's going to beat that time. In fairness, I don't think any of the top 4 need to go out at all.
So an out lap and a tyre cross, it makes getting a flying lap time in almost impossible. So do without the tyre cross. How big a disadvantage will that be?
Well, there's still some residual heat in the rear tyres from the running they did just before the red flag. So there is some residual heat in them. They're not stone cold, they're not new. And it is possible to do it, but not easy.
But as we sit in the pit lane, that temperature is dissipating and we're not ready to go yet, because you can see there's still the recovery vehicle, there's Nick Halstead's car being given back to the team. So let's say it's another 30 seconds, at least more temperature's gone.
Yeah, the longer they wait and the later they are out the pit lane, the less temperature they will have.
Exactly.
And it's about confidence in a front-wheel drive car. You need the confidence that the rear tyre is underneath you before you can really launch it down the crane of curves. Otherwise, you end up in a Sam Osborne situation.
Yeah, exactly. Right, 3 minutes is the allowed time. Those that are missing the cut at the moment: Mikey Doble, Josh Cook, Aaron Taylor-Smith, Sam Osborne, who we know won't be able to restart, Chris Smiley and Daryl De Leon.
And I'm not saying that it's directly related, but the only person that has crashed, which was Sam Osborne, is the one person that only did an out and an in lap before he crossed his tyres.
Yeah.
So he would have had less temperature in those rears than anyone else. And I know he was pushing on because he went and did a fairly quick time, didn't he, fairly quickly. But it is interesting that that was the car that spun off.
Right, the recovery vehicle in the pit lane still. And yeah, the fact that Ash Sutton's car's up on it still suggests he's not going anywhere in a hurry.
We have barrier repairs.
Yeah,
that's
the other delay.
And that's not quick, is it? I mean, they've still got to secure that banding to the tyres. Look how soft the grass is. This is the other issue now. The ground is so soft that the cars, when they go off, dig it up. Look, the tractor's digging it up. It makes the runoff areas really like a ploughed field, really.
I mean, I know it has to do the job, but that tractor's making it worse, isn't it?
Well,
Even it's struggling for traction.
Yeah.
Crikey. But yeah, all those big ruts in the runoff area are from the tractor.
Yeah.
But it's got to be there to do that job of repairing the barriers. And it's struggling. Don't often see a tractor struggling for grip, but anyway, we're rattling through this as quickly as possible, but the teams are getting a bit more frustrated as they are aware that the tyre temperature is disappearing. So that belting just needs to be secured.
Yeah, I mean, the longer it takes, the less chance of anybody doing anything in 3 minutes. But we can have some further reaction from the pit lane as Louise is talking with Daryl De Leon.
Yeah, Daryl De Leon, who I think it's fair to say, you've been in at the deep end because you've had very little time in the car, but you're one of the good news stories of this qualifying session. It's going really well so far, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's gone well so far. To be honest, I don't know what's going on because I don't have radio, so I'm just going to keep trying to push it to get the fastest I can, and we'll see where we end up. But
so slightly frustrating that you had one of your fastest laps deleted just towards the end of that session. I suppose in some ways that's enabled you to come back in, fix a few little issues that we saw with the car. So it's kind of head down for this final run, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's 3 minutes on the clock, and it's just about getting a lap in. So hopefully we can do that, but we'll see.
We'll see you out there. Good luck.
Thank you.
Well, he certainly has been one of the good news stories of the session. Whether he progresses into Q3 is, I fear, unlikely, given that he is the 12th of the 12 at the moment, and he's 2.9 seconds away from Ash Sutton. What would he have to find to get himself into the top 6? 1.9 seconds, even that's a lot to find. So, as I've been saying, that clock reset at 3 minutes, but even that doesn't really give the drivers enough chance to do an outlap and a proper flying lap with tyre temperature to improve a lap time. So how many venture out, we will wait and see.
I mean, if you're the first one out of the pit lane and you get a wriggle on round that lap, you would actually get 2 laps in, 2 flyers, because you would cross the line before the 3 minutes was up. But we'll
see. It's all about tyre temperature, isn't it, and how much you can generate. Okay, so there is Sam Osborne's car being brought back to the Napa Racing team, which is, as we've been making the point, not having its best day.
No, but well, Sutton will be through to the top 6 final part of qualifying, so he's still in with a shout of putting it on pole and saving the day.
Ash sits and waits and possibly listens to the sage words of his engineer Tony Carosa. Other teams likewise will be discussing the next 3 minutes with their drivers. First decision is whether to go out or not.
Look at that though, the top 4 from the championship last year in those places in this session.
Yes, indeed. Sutton, Ingram, Turkington, Hill. There is Tom Ingram, who would quite like number 1 back on the side of the car. His trademark 80 has returned for this year, but he wants to be champion at the end of the season. Engines are fired up down below, doors are closed. Race faces are back on, and Colin Turkington, by the look of it, is going to be out on track. Others likewise, so we await the countdown. Of course, part of that 3 minutes, yes, you were saying you've got to get a wriggle on. It also depends where you are in the pit lane. If you're near to pit out, obviously you hit the track far earlier than those like Restart Racing and Duckens with Bartercard that are at the pit in end of the pit lane. That's a rather grubby circuit over at Schwantz Curve, but they're going to leave that because the lights have gone green. So the muck on the road will get blown away by the cars as they drive over it and past it. So the session is back in business, and Ash Sutton does go back out.
Yeah, but this might be just an exercise in getting some heat back in those tyres for the next session. He might be just building a bit of heat in them, but I don't think he needs to go any quicker. I'm pretty sure that 8-0 will get him through anyway, but he may be just doing something else. I think everyone's gone out, actually, but they don't need to.
All those that can are on track. So the one we lose is Sam Osborne, who's triggered our first red flag of the season, therefore. And Ash Sutton, he's on the mission, isn't he? Because straight away, he gaps everybody else on the track, and for an outlap, that looks pretty committed.
Yeah, it does, but he's feeling how much grip he's got in the tyres, how much heat. He obviously intends to get on with it, doesn't he, and do another couple laps. But I am surprised, bearing in mind he'll want these tyres as fresh as possible for the next section. I guess after the problems with his teammates, they're not taking any chances, are they?
True enough, true enough. So Sutton, with a huge amount of effort being put in, he's trying to get the tyres up to temperature, and he's going to come up to the line with, for him, time for 2 push laps. Colin Turkington behind.
Will also get 2 push laps.
Yeah, he will.
As long as they're under 1 minute, sort of 13 seconds, 12 seconds, they're going to get 2 laps. Which is all of these cars. It is actually going to be just about everyone as they cross the line.
Yeah, Chris Smiley was the last in the queue, but he will come up to the line, and yes, he's just squeezed through, so he's okay. Right, Sutton you're riding with, and it is Colin Turkington who's done a personal best within the first sector. That's Chris Smiley, he's at the back of the line, but Turkington is the one to watch now because he's done, as I say, a personal best within sector 1. Yeah. And we've got less than a minute of the session to go.
But remember, it's purples we're looking for in the sectors, the little bars at the bottom, to identify fastest of everybody in that second. Green is fastest of your time that sector you've done.
So 36 seconds on the clock to end Q2. Still got Q3 to come. Turkington down to the chicane. Ash Sutton ahead of him on the road when the lap began. Here's the BMW. He's got ahead of Ash Sutton now, so I think Ash might well bail. What can Turkington do? Well, he can get another lap out of it, that's for sure. But the lap was a slower one in the end because he was slower in sectors 2 and 3. This is Josh Cook. He's 8th. Can he get himself into the top 6 is the question. He was good in sector 1. He comes up towards the line, and 7th. He gains a place, but it's not enough. 9,000th shy of the top 6.
But he's still got another lap to improve on that time. I do think there'll be changes. I can see Cookie definitely getting in.
Darryl De Leon is another one with a lap taken off him. Right, checkered flag is out, And Tom Ingram, absolute best in the first sector. So Ingram is on a mega lap, and you're riding with him then as he comes up through Schwartz Curve now, heading up towards McLean's corner. So Ingram possibly to go fastest, and Cook for the top 6, which would be at the expense of stablemate Andrew Watson.
Well, that was good timing by Ian Watson, the clerk of the course, to give him 3 minutes, wasn't it? Because that actually, and that was Cook over track limits on the exit of McLean's. Definitely over there. You don't get a second chance in qualifying, so Cookie could lose this lap. But yet, the 3 minutes was enough for everybody to get 2 laps. They wouldn't have done it, it wouldn't have been enough if they'd only had 1, but 2 was enough.
Right, so up to the line comes Tom Ingram. Is this going to put him fastest in this part of the session? The answer is no. He misses out by 79 thousandths. What about Cook for the top 6? The answer is no. He goes through and ends up 9th. And it is Sutton, Ingram, Turkington, Hill, Pearson, Watson, the top 6.
Yeah.
So we haven't been told that Josh Cook's lap was...
But he's not in anyway.
But he's not in anyway.
He's not in anyway, so...
Taylor Smith went 7th, got ahead of him. Josh Cook's lap was slower in the end across the sectors.
Yeah, didn't hook it up together, did he, on that lap? But, yeah, nobody went faster than Sutton's lap. But, interesting session.
Right, so those that missed the cut, Aaron Taylor-Smith 7th, Josh Cook 8th, Darryl DeLeon 9th, Mikey Doble 10th, Sam Osborne 11th, Chris Smiley 12th. Darryl DeLeon 9th overall though, fair play.
Absolutely, really good, really good. Fabulous job by Darryl DeLeon.
Yeah, and the team, they've had to work some long hours to get that car on the grid.
And he was saying they hadn't got a radio, whether that's because the radio wasn't working or they just haven't actually got a radio. So we're given these changing circumstances to manage that strategically with no radio. Fair play, well done to the team, Ultimate Motorsports.
Yeah, agreed. So Aaron Taylor-Smith misses out. He is going to start, therefore, from the 4th row of the grid tomorrow, and we take our fastest 6 then into the final 10 minutes to determine the pointy end of the grid. So they will be Ash Sutton, Tom Ingram, Colin Turkington, Jake Hill, Ronan Pearson. Now, we haven't really got excited about Ronan, but we should do, because that's a very good effort. And Andrew Watson, who now is upholding Toyota on.
Yeah. Well, I'm not surprised to see Ronan Pearson up there. Very quick driver. Was quickest in the final Toka test, wasn't he? And he's a very quick driver. Look at Josh Cook's helmet for this year. Really great helmet. Look at that.
So he's got away from the sort of open face pretend helmet now to his face.
Yeah.
So great artwork, as you rightly say. But whether it's been able to reflect his slightly grumpy demeanour because he's out of qualifying remains to be seen. But that's another driver who is going to be very, very disappointed indeed. But this is exactly what Alan Gow had in mind when he came up with this idea for qualifying, to claim some big names, to make the grid for race 1 a real jumble. And we've certainly achieved that.
Well, bearing in mind that we actually have got everybody on equal hybrid at the moment. We haven't introduced any hybrid differentiation based on championship positions, which we'll get at qualifying at Brands, and it's already exciting enough. So goodness knows what we're going to get at Brands.
Well, Josh Cook out of the car.
Oh,
that doesn't suggest happiness, does it?
No, that was a proper slam, wasn't it? Yeah, not happy at all.
So Josh Cook then missed out by just a few tenths of a second, and at the end of Q2, therefore, Ash Sutton progresses. He was 79 thousandths ahead of Tom Ingram. Colin Turkington goes through, as does Jake Hill. So does Ronan Pearson, and Andrew Watson's Toyota Gazoo Racing entry upholding the mark honour. We lose Aaron Taylor-Smith and Josh Cook. Darryl DeLeon is out, and Mikey Doble doesn't progress, nor does Sam Osborne nor Chris Smiley. So another 6 drivers sit on the bench, and only 6 will take to the track in 5 minutes' time when Q3 gets underway. OK, Sutton, Ingram, Turkington, Hill, Pearson, Watson. Pole position will go to
Ash Sutton.
All right, OK.
And you would say, David?
Well, one of those 6, definitely, yes.
You are sitting on the fence. You've got splinters, David, if you sit on the fence.
I'll go Ingram.
OK.
Now, what about Ronan Pearson? Well, he's done a mega job thus far. 5th fastest, and he's with Louise.
As you say, David, a great job, Ronan. You've got to be pretty happy with that so far.
Oh, Louise, absolutely delighted. At the moment, we're on for my best qualifying to date, and yeah, a year ago we just missed out on what was a top 10 shootout, and now we're through to the quick 6. So yeah, absolutely buzzing.
You are absolutely beaming. I don't know whether you can focus in on the eyes here, but this boy is absolutely beaming inside that helmet. As you say, just missing out last year. What do you think? What are you aiming for in this session now, in this final shootout? You're just happy to be here, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah. At some point I'll stop surprising myself. We've got a fantastic package here, and credit to Team Accelerate and Macklin Motors. We've done an absolutely stellar job over the winter, and I had a real confident feeling. I wasn't sure. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but at this point in time it's just showing what we can do. So here I want to improve on my time from Q2, because I felt like I left a little bit on the table. So fingers crossed, we'll see how we go.
What kind of shape do you think you're in this year? Because I think that there's been a lot of chat about the fact you did seriously well last year. Coming into this season, you've got to be feeling really quite... We're ready to go, are you?
Yeah,
I'll let you get your head down.
Let's go.
He's got more important things to do than talk to me, so I'll let the boy go. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Louise. But yes, we could see that he was grinning from ear to ear, and we were saying earlier on what a good job he was doing. He was one of the standout drivers of last season, part of the British Racing Drivers Club's Rising Stars programme to bring on young British talent. The club's chosen well.
Yeah, and despite him having the narrowest helmet aperture in his visor, he had a very deep top section of his visor, real narrow viewpoint. So, and that actually hurts you a little bit in touring cars, because you don't quite have as much peripheral vision. You need to see quite a lot. But you could see just through his eyes how much he was smiling, couldn't you? He's loving it.
Right, the drivers are getting ready. The teams pull the cars back onto the fast lane of the pits, and so now we are ready for Q3. This will determine the order of the first 3 notional rows. I know it's a staggered grid, but let's call them rows for these purposes. How the top 6 are going to line up. 10 minutes, the track at the clearest it has been. They just had the busiest. Now it's the clearest that it has been, as 6 cars will take to the circuit, and the only team by name it's got 2 cars out there is, of course, the Team Bristol Street Motors, Tom Ingram and Ronan Pearson. You've got the 2 BMWs from WSR, but one's Team BMW, the other is the Laser Tools Racing with MV Motorsport. The point of all of this being, will your teammate help you, or is it every man for himself?
No, it's every man for himself, and effective. This isn't a circuit that you normally would set yourself up to tow with. It's a flowing circuit, and you need to have clear vision and get your own flow and rhythm going. Some circuits, particularly like Snetterton, it's a big help if you can get a tow, but not so much here.
Well, this is Tom Ingram's view, and he wants some of that traffic to go, then it doesn't get in his way. He wants to get the tyres up to temperature. And looks like he's going to stay dry for 8 3/4 more minutes as he comes now through Coppice. So.
And again, this is the first time we've had this situation, and bear in mind they're on the same tyres that they finished the last session on. It'll be interesting to see exactly what their tyre strategy is.
Cars getting lighter, of course, all the way from qualifying as well as they burn off fuel. So up through the chicane now come the first few cars, those of Sutton and Turkington and Hill, then Ingram, then Pearson, then Watson.
Yeah, everybody very much on a tyre warming exercise, as you can see by the weaving. In fact, Ingram almost lost it, actually. He swerved so hard. I saw the back end step out coming out of the chicane on about his 4th weave, and it looked decidedly layering.
Donington, normally a circuit that's been pretty good to Jake Hill over the years. Got his first pole here, for example. Got his race wins in the past. There is Tom Ingram coming out of the old hairpin, speed building as he makes the climb now up towards Schwantz Curve. Then McLean's corner. Andrew Watson's the one at the back of the 6 cars. The sextet is on track. Ingram again putting all that energy into the Hyundai, flicks it right through McLean, grabs a gear, and again moves from one side of the road to the other to try to encourage the temperature to increase in the tyres.
Yeah, well, what you tend to do is you exaggerate the corner, so instead of winding the lock off on the exit, you hold the lock on, just like you saw there with Andrew Watson, to increase the radius of the corner and load the tyre up more.
So Watson down to the chicane, wants some of that traffic to go, and now we'll start to see people onto a proper flying lap as they come over the line. They'll put a benchmark time on the board now, but they'll go quicker because Turkington does a 14, Sutton's in the pits, and also Ingram comes in, Pearson comes in, and Watson comes in. So just the 2 rear-wheel drive cars stay out, tyre cross for the front-wheel drive machines.
Yeah, and they did, interestingly, did obviously their 2 laps to warm the tyres. And we saw in the run last time, didn't it? It took 2 or 3 laps for Turkington to build the temperature in those tyres and get the fastest time.
Right, so Turkington now, absolute best in Sector 1. Doesn't matter what you did in terms of a lap time to get to Q3, it's your Q3 time that you count, even if it's slower than anything else you did earlier on in the day. You just take the time from this portion of qualifying. Out of Coppice comes Turkington then, and we'll see in a moment out of this long middle sector, whether it's purple, whether it's green, whether it's yellow. Yellow is bad, green's good, purple's really good, and it's really good for Colin Turkington as he comes to the end of the sector down towards the chicane. Now, what's this lap going to be? A 12, a 10? What do we think?
Well, before you get too excited, it's purple because there's only him and Hill doing quick laps, but so it's not going to be particularly quick. It's a 12-3 effectively, but obviously we need to be down in the 8, so yeah, it'll. He's still building temperature. You can see by the weaving, he's still building it up gradually. Turkington has such a good feel for the tyres. His, years of experience, years with BMW, years with West Surrey. He has a real innate feel for tyre temperature and the limit of the car, and he's able to build on it incrementally.
And how often last year did we get concerned early on in qualifying about Colin, and then right in the last 2 or 3 minutes, bang, he was up there. Now, okay, it's a much shorter session now, 10 minutes, but even so, he will know when he can push. And up towards Coppice he comes. Now, on this lap, it was slightly down in terms of Jake Hill's time within the first sector. It's Jake that's done the absolute best. Sutton now completes the outlap. Now he's going for it.
Yeah, although he's still weaving as well, so I don't think they're quite in the window of where they want to be ultimately. But Jake Hill, purple first and second sector, so we're going to see times. This will probably be in the 11s, maybe a low 11. Oh, it's an 8.4. That's a very quick lap straight away.
Okay, so Jake Hill 68.4, Colin Turkington a 1 minute 10.2, and this is Ash Sutton, who is on a personal best in the first sector, but hasn't really got much to base itself on, given that he's already had his pit stop, and now we see him starting to push for the first time. Turkington, though, now absolute best within Sector 1. This is Tom Ingram. He comes down to the end of the first sector. This is the old hairpin. He's not as quick as Turkington, and he's away from Turkington by 9/10.
Yeah, so he's still building, isn't he? Definitely. Yeah. There you see the best sector time so far. Turkington on this lap, not the last lap, set the fastest first sector. Jake Hill, the fastest second and third sectors, but that may be beaten by Turkington now.
Right, so there is Colin Turkington, who is second at the moment. Jake Hill currently top. This is Ash Sutton. Now let's see where that lap puts him as he comes across the line. It is a 1 minute 13, so there's more to come. But again, now that you've had that crossing of the tyre and outlaps completed, you get to this magic sort of 3.5 minute point where it really starts to come alive as a session. And Turkington goes back to the top on a 68.1.
Oh, big lock up there on the right front wheel going into Redgate. You still see the smoke there as Tom Ingram gets there. Pearson is up to third with his flying lap, so he's carrying on his good form. But on the last lap, Turkington was purple in every sector.
And Ash Sutton has now done an absolute best within the first. He's now lost that to Tom Ingram, so the times are tumbling. So Sutton at the end of this lap could put himself up to the very top, but then Ingram might go even faster. The order currently, Turkington, Hill, Pearson, Ingram, Watson, Sutton, but expected to jumble itself up again with less than 3 minutes to go. You're riding with Sutton then. Down towards the chicane, road climbs slightly here, he's late on the brakes, flicks the car in right, across the curve left, up towards the timing line, uses the curve on the outside, grabs a gear, and the lap time that he does as he goes through his fastest, it's a 67.896, but Ingram, who did an absolute best in Sector 1, not as good as Sutton in Sector 2, he was about a 10th shy. Let's see what he can do. Ingram 5th at the start of the lap, and as he breaks the beam at the end of it, Tom Ingram goes second.
Yeah, so we're well in the 7s now for Ash Sutton, the 7.8, but that's 1.5 tenths quicker than Ingram went.
Sutton, Ingram, Turkington, Hill, Pearson, Watson. That's the order. and 1.6 seconds is the spread of cars. Andrew Watson needs to find a little bit more time from somewhere, as on the next lap, Sutton slower in sector 1, Ingram, Turkington, Hill all slower in the first sector.
Yeah, interesting though, Ingram is the fastest in sector 1. It's Sutton's favourite best sectors are sector 2 and 3.
Now Hill does an absolute best in sector 1. You're riding with Ingram, but behind him on track is a hard-charging Jake Hill. So Ingram is not going to be an improver on this lap, I wouldn't have thought, given that he's down in the first sector. But Jake Hill in the Laser Tools, there it is, BMW, is absolutely flying. He's about to come to the end of that long middle sector, so let's see whether it's going to be green or purple, or indeed whether he's lost ground, and it is yellow. He seems to have used all of his hybrid for the lap though, so Jake Hill comes to the end of the sector, and it is yellow, lost pace.
Oh, what a big lock-up, he's blown it, he's blown the lap, and he's flat-spotted those tyres.
And he's blown the next lap as Ingram goes top on a 67.845. So Jake Hill loses momentum, does the tyres of power are no good, and compromises 2 laps, and Tom Ingram is the quickest now by 51 thousandths of a second, and the car's still dancing as he comes down to the old hairpin.
Oh, signs of just kissing the tyres through the chicane. Look at the right front tyre marks on it. He's absolutely pushing the margins, but Hill won't get another lap. He won't get round in time to start another lap, so that's Hill out of contention for the pole. That was a massive lock-up, wasn't it, on the front? That will have really hurt those tyres.
And so 4th at best is where he will be. Could drop if Pearson or Watson goes even quicker. The margin to Hill to Pearson is 0.4 of a second. This is Ash Sutton with only the chicane to go. He'll squeeze another lap out of this. On this lap, he was good in sector 1 and good in sector 2. They were personal bests, not absolutes. At the end of the lap, Sutton stays second fastest.
By just 0.05 of a second.
Yeah, he'd gone a tenth slower than his earlier best.
Yeah.
You're right, 51 thousandths was the earlier margin. And Turkington, lap time disallowed for track limits. He was 3rd.
Okay.
That's Watson taking the flag, and Andrew Watson stays 6th. The Ronan Pearson stays 5th. So it looks like we've got an order. And that is at the moment Ingram, Sutton, Turkington, Hill. There is Colin Turkington, didn't improve in the first sector. So those that are yet to take the flag have not improved in sectors. I think we've got ourselves an order for the grid, and that means that Tom Ingram is on for a 7th pole of his career.
Yeah, Turkington some 0.3 off in the first sector, so he's not going to improve that on the rest of the lap.
Well, I think the new format of qualifying has worked very, very nicely, don't you? It's given us a really interesting grid going into race 1 tomorrow. This is Ash Sutton. He's going to be 2nd because he's down in sectors 1 and 2. Heads up towards the timing line. Little burst of hybrid power up towards the timing line to break the beam, and Ash Sutton stays 2nd.
Well, we got 1st and 2nd, David, on the grid, and I have to doff my hat to you for picking the pole sitter. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that session. Really enjoyed it.
We knew it was going to be interesting, and some big names claimed very early on. A little bit of drizzle we're hearing just at certain parts of the circuit in that final part of qualifying, so maybe that affected the very end for 1 or 2 drivers, but even so, a very happy Tom Ingram makes his way into the technical area. The scrutineering checks now from Toka Technical Team. Ingram, Sutton, Turkington, Hill, Pearson, Watson is the order. Credit to Team Bristol Street Motors getting 2 cars in. I know that WSR did, but they're under different team names, but even so, good effort. It's a good... We dwelt a little bit on the hard luck stories of the likes of Cavendish, Robots, and Chilton, and Half and others, but there are some good news stories as well. Ronan Pearson's one, Darrell DeLee on another, and actually Chris Smiley as well, Restart Racing coming into the championship and getting him into Q2. So a lot of positives to take out of it as well.
Yeah, definitely. But the reason that Tom Ingram is so pumped is he has the bragging rights. When everybody's had equal hybrid, same tyres, he is the fastest. He's taken that first pole position of 2024, and he'll be really looking to try and convert that into a win in the first race tomorrow.
Jake Hill's car on the flat patch. So everything is being checked, ride height as well as the weight of the car. And now that car being brought forward. To be placed under parc fermé conditions.
Yeah, apparently the car was there for quite a long time, but we didn't see the rollers going under. Ingram is trying to pick up as much tyre marbles as he possibly can. That's why he's driving around the edge of the track, just to pick some up on the tyres to raise the ride height if he's marginal at all. Look, anything he can grab onto those tyres, he will do. Everything sticks to the hot tyre and just raises the circumference, or increases the circumference, and thereby raises the ride height at the front fractionally.
A rise circumference. Yes.
And then, of course, the teams have to clean all that off with a hot air gun, scraping the tyres in the pit so he can reuse them in the races.
So 51 thousandths of a second is our margin between the top two. Colin Turkington's car has now gone through the technical check, and then he will start third provisionally for race 1 tomorrow as the car now is released. So at the end of Q3 then, the order: Tom Ingram by 51 thousandths of a second from Ash Sutton, Colin Turkington third, Jake Hill fourth, and then Ronan Pearson and Andrew Watson round out the 6. They will be the top 6 on the grid. The rest of the grid, 7th and back you take from Q2, and then 13th and back you take from Q1. So this is the only slightly nerve-wracking bit now for Tom Ingram, to make sure that everything is good through the technical checks. Ronan Pearson's car will go first. Tom's joining the back of the queue. Andrew Watson's there, Ash Sutton's there, Tom Ingram's there as well. But there he is, coming down the pit road. He'll get through on instruction.
You even come in, you even brake very gently, because obviously when you brake, you put the weight of the car forwards, which compresses the suspension, which lowers the ride height. So that's why you see him just rolling in ever so gently. You're trying to not put any load on the front that could compress the front suspension. So you literally brake really gently on the in-lap.
Been there, done that, haven't you? Yes.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of poles in my careers, but the ones I did get, I definitely wanted to keep.
Well, Tom Ingram wants to keep that 7th one, that's for sure. And a job well done, of course, as ever. Tom with his ace engineer, Spencer Aldridge. And it's another of those great double acts within the pit lane. Colin Turkington then, third. How does he feel about that? Well, let's find out. He's with Louise.
Yeah, the first man of the top 3 to make it back here into Parc Fermé. Colin, thumbs up for that one. I think you'll be quite happy with that.
Yeah, feels like a day's work. Just doing qualifying, but
it's a long old session now, isn't it?
It is. You know, I started in the second group, so it's a really strange experience. You know, we sent Adam out for Q1, leaving the truck, saying best of luck, mate. See you on the other side. But yeah, I really enjoyed it because you get a chance to, if you get through the sessions, you get that 5-minute window to sort of try and improve the car, sort of refocus, get a quick few nuggets of information where you can find some lap time, and we did that each outing. We found a few tenths, so yeah, it's the usual suspects ahead of me, isn't it? But yeah, we're in the mix. You know, P3 is a great start.
Interesting though, you say if you get through the sessions, because obviously we saw, you probably weren't paying attention to it all, you had other things on your mind, but we saw some of the guys who we would expect to be up here who didn't get through, who went out after the first one. How difficult was it for you all to kind of keep the focus, and because it was all coming at you thick and fast with weather conditions thrown in there as well initially?
I think that's the thing, it's the weather conditions were throwing a massive curveball, because Adam Morgan, who was in the first part of qualifying, as he boxed, he said it's track's definitely wet, so we went out on wets, and in that 5 minutes it was definitely slick, so I did one sort of banker on wet, and then it was one of those where you knew it was going to be the last lap over the line was going to improve, but yeah, it's definitely not easy, you know. You know, going back to last year, you just had to do 1 lap in 30 minutes. Now you have to do 3, and you know, there's a new regulation as well that if you cause a yellow flag in qualifying, not just a red but a yellow, you know, there's a chance you're going to lose your 2 fastest laps. So you got to almost be driving at 100%, but you know, almost just with a little bit in reserve. So, but yeah, I enjoyed it, you know, and hopefully everybody at home did too.
Well, that's the day done and dusted. More to come tomorrow with more new regulations to factor in then as well. So it's going to be interesting, isn't it?
It is, you know, the hybrid deployment. You know, the game's changed this year. You know, it's double the strength that we had last year. So that's definitely going to make the races more interesting. You know, if it's wet tomorrow, you know, we're still going to be on that hybrid. So it's Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to sleep tonight. Too much to think about.
We'll see you out there. Right, let's just turn round because we can see Tom Ingram, our first pole sitter for 2024, just getting out of the car and rightly celebrating that result. It was a really good session for him. We'll see if I can dive in and grab a word once he takes his helmet off. I'll give him that traditional sign that says, please take your helmet off quite quickly, Thomas. No, he's, as you would expect, taking the plaudits from the team, slapping hands all around. Thomas, I'm right behind you. Helmet off. And let's grab a word about that first qualifying session, which Tim always says, we all look forward to that session because that is, everybody is in an identical situation. So to come out top, that's great, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah, it really, really is. And it's a winter of hard work to sort of try and improve this car. And Team Bristol Street Motors has done one hell of a job to make that happen. So yeah, massive thank you to everyone who's been involved in this over winter, because we've left absolutely no stone unturned to make sure we're as fast as we possibly can be. And yeah, we've come out absolutely fighting and start absolutely as we mean to go on.
So close, 5,00000.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Good job, I lost a little bit of weight.
Well, we were, yeah, and funnily enough, we were talking about that earlier on. This is the new slim line, Tom Ingram. Daft question, but do you think it has made a difference, actually?
Thingram?
Thingram, I like it.
Maybe. I don't know. Look, it's a psychological thing as well as anything else, that if all of these guys are putting in so much work, I've got to make sure when I get plugged in, I can absolutely do the job as well. But I felt good about this weekend. I felt really excited about it. I've been looking forward to it. I felt confident. The winter has been fantastic for us in terms of our testing plan and our development, so it's gone perfectly to plan, absolutely.
Well, and starting from pole, that's got to give you a confidence boost looking ahead to race one tomorrow as well.
Naturally, it's the best place to start, isn't it? This weather can decide what it wants to do. That would be lovely. As I spoke to Alan Hyde earlier on, I said it's amazing how everything else in life seems to work apart from a weather forecast. Everyone else seems to do their job. Why can't the weather forecasters do it? So let's hope that sorts itself out and we can find a weather app that lets us know what's going on tomorrow.
Well done. Congratulations. Right, let's wander up and grab a word with Ash Sutton. I think, actually, to be fair to the weather forecasters, they've told us what it's going to do tomorrow, and it's going to absolutely throw it down throughout the day. So, Ash, well, that was an interesting session one way or another, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was mega. It was awesome for the spectators. I think it's just what we need. It's absolutely brilliant. I'm really happy with where we are. Yeah, I mean, it's a new year. You got to forget what we did last year. Everyone's up their game. So, yeah, really pleased with that. Second's a mega job. Maybe played it a bit safe. Don't get me wrong, because it's so important to get a lap here. And then I had a cool down and then the rain comes. So it's a bit annoying, but we can race from there. We'll take it to Tom into turn one.
Do you think there was more to come then?
Yeah, I said to the boys from Q2 that when we did a flat, I said there's a good couple of attempts here. And we found half of that when we went out on our next banker and for Q3. And yeah, just needed to find a fraction more. I think it was half a tenth. So I'm over the moon with that. It's mega for Napa Racing UK and everyone involved.
So it looks like we're starting 2024 like we finished 2023. Tom Ingram versus Ash Sutton.
It seems to be the case. I think we've got a nice little margin over the BMs, but for sure for the line they're going to be strong tomorrow. So yeah, we'll wait and see what the weather's do.
Looking forward to it. See you out there tomorrow. Thanks, Ash. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Louise. Well, yes, fascinating qualifying session as expected, and there's going to be a great race at the front, as Ash has just alluded to. There's going to be a great race at the back, as a good half a dozen star drivers have to try and force a way through.
Yeah, of course, but they'll all have the same amount of hybrid for race one, so it'll be the best man that wins, certainly in race one, and then we will start to see what happens when the hybrids reduce for the cars at the front. And those behind have a great advantage. But certainly it'll be a game of two halves in terms of those who have qualified well will try and maximise their points in race one. Those that have had the problems today will try and come through in races 2 and 3.
And there is also talk of a bit more rain for tomorrow as well.
In which case, all gloves and all bets are off.
Absolutely right. Absolutely. And once we get to race 2, then you start to factor in the hybrid deployment based on the finishing positions or how you cross the line in race 1. But for now, Tom Ingram has a lot to talk about in terms of a great day. He was fastest in Q1 in his group. He was second in Q2. And then the most important bit of all, he tops the times in the final part of qualifying in Q3 to secure pole position for race 1 tomorrow. And talking of tomorrow, it is going to be another great day of racing, because we don't just have, of course, the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. Porsche Carrera Cup GB has a mega entry for the year. The Mini Challenge, the British Formula 4 Championship are back. So too the guest races for Radicals and also Legends this weekend. So it's an epic day of racing tomorrow from the Donington Park National Circuit. We will be on air from 10:40 on ITV4 and promise you action pretty much from the first race lights going out to the end of the day, because on the national circuit every category will deliver plenty of drama, that's for sure. We'll see you at 10:40 tomorrow. For now, from Donington, from Louise Goodman, Tim Harvey and David Addison, it's goodbye.